welcome to Furious Driving, and today we are back at the barn and looking at this, my 2000 Alfa Romeo 145 Cloverleaf, an astonishingly rare car, getting rarer by the day as far as I can tell, and this one almost became one of the rare ones by vanishing when it failed its MOT. This is the MOT fail sheet. There are a few things which I've transcribed onto this bit of cardboard here to make things a little bit easier for us as we go along, which we're going to tackle over some forthcoming videos. There's a couple of nice easy ones. For example, the brake flexi hoses are all worn out, so I need to change all of those. We can get that done in one episode, I would hope. Although it does mention that a couple of the hard lines have got, well, either signs of corrosion or have been covered with something to make them hard to see. Then we've got a CV boot to change. That's not too bad. The headlight aim is an issue. This is an unexpected fail because what looks like has happened is that one of the headlamp motors, they've got leveling motors in them, has gone completely mad and it's now pointing at the ground and won't come up again. Possibly it's wound its way all the way off the thread and we can wind that back on again, or it might be broken. We need to investigate that. Then the windscreen washers aren't working, we'll fit that into a video somewhere. Then these last 5 items are all much the same thing. Exhaust lambda, exhaust carbon dioxide, exhaust hydrocarbons. Basically the emissions are all completely off the chart. And the reason we think is because this one, which comes up as a minor report and advise, which is an exhaust leak. Ironically, emissions outside the car are fail immediately, but you know, gassing yourself and dying inside the car, deal with it in your own time. But the MOT man does suggest that the reason we've got all these crazy emissions readouts is because of this exhaust leak confusing the computer. So it's chucking the wrong amount of air and fuel mix in there and it's all going horribly wrong. So we'll have a look at that and hopefully we can deal with that. That was an issue. He said he had a look for it for me, but he couldn't see where it's coming from. He thinks it's from the manifold. We've got something fun and exciting to have a look at with that though. So I don't know where to start. There's so much. And but I've boiled it down to 5 bullet points on this bit of cardboard, which we can work out and try and figure it out. He's also mentioned that the exhaust silencer is slightly loose in the centre and the rear, which is a perennial problem with this car. It keeps shaking exhausts loose. I don't think it has quite enough exhaust hangers for some reason. It's weird. And if anyone was thinking that the MOT man was easy on my Crown Victoria, in fact, as Ohio only does biannual emissions checks, not an actual MOT, that was its first ever actual test of any kind in nearly 20 years. The same man who did this list did that car, so, you know. Right, so, I'm not sure where to begin with this. I think maybe I'll whip a wheel off and start having a look at the brake hoses. Well, I've pushed the Alfa back a little way, and here with it not even back as far as the doors, I've got as much room in front of it as it was taking previously, and this does kind of confirm my idea that I can quite happily squeeze the 200 VI nose to tail here with this, and then with the 200 Coupe, the Tomcat, pushed over sideways a bit more, there is room to park the Mini over there. So this is a 5-car garage. That's what I'm thinking. Something I always forget about home is gloves. And up here, I've got to walk miles away to a remote toilet block thing in order to wash my hands afterwards. I've got to drive home, so I make an effort to try and stay a little bit cleaner up here. Not get myself so oily and gross. Right, so here is the flexi hose, which I have sprayed releasing fluid on already. Give it another 5 minutes of that. And behind that, you might be able to see the CV boot, which is not really looking like it's doing very much at all. So I'll have to order up one of those things as well. I was wondering about changing the brakes while I had the wheel off, but to be honest, these discs and pads look like they've got a lot of meat on them already. Right, so I'm going to try and go in there and get these things undone. Blimey, that was actually way easier than I expected. Okay, that's too easy. What's the catch? That's a 14, but a tight 14. Oh, it's free as well. Wow, okay. So that's easy enough. all good. Right, so having undone both ends, this comes out surprisingly easily. Little bracket just there, slides out, just like that. And now we can pull this free, undo this one. And I'll put a bit of carpet down so I'm not making a mess on the floor. This undoes a lot of wines, a surprisingly large number of wines in fact. It's like a ballerina. Comes out, new one goes in. Let's wind this in first. The brakes, of course, will need bleeding after I've finished doing this. That's a 17. Everything's got splatters of brake fluid on it now after being dripped on for a while. 17 and the 12. Lovely, job done there. 14. Tighten things up at the bottom. And that goes into the little bracket there. There we go. Job done. If I just give it a little bit of a clean up with brake and clutch, because brake fluid is absolutely horrible stuff, and you can see it's already taken loads of the under seal off. So I'll have to re-under seal this whole area. In fact, looking at the chassis and suspension parts down there, the whole area does actually look like it needs a bit of a clean up. Maybe this car can go up the crown at some point, be done soon. Yeah, that's taken that all off quite neatly. Excellent, good news. Yeah, that bracket is also, don't you see that? Kind of bare metal and not very clean. I think it'd be nice to take that off again next time I have this wheel off and paint that. Cool. Right, that side is now done, or this corner is now done. What I need to do now is pop over to the parts place and go and find myself a new one of those CV joints and get that changed as well. But obviously I'll put the wheel down and do the rest of these brake hoses first. As this is the first time I've done any actual work here in the garage, this barn, something of a learning curve, and the first thing I've learned is that I really need to do something about this floor, because it's really dusty and powdery. Every time I touch it with my knees or my hands, it's white dust off, so I think I will have to paint this. So once again, before I do anything else, I'm just going to give a squirt of penetrating fluid. The first one was kind of a learning curve. This one, do kind of more know what I'm doing now. Amazing how easily these things actually do free off. It is something of a miracle as far as I'm concerned. 20-year-old Italian car, and everything works as it should. Oh, is that not a 12 anymore this time? That's fun. Let's try an 11 this time. Okay, that's freed off now. Well, but whatever was coating the outside of this one, the metal pipe, has now decided to part company. Which maybe that's what was showing up on the MOT as not being very nice. I'll bring some sandpaper over here and give us a bit of a clean up before it all goes back together. That one was a lot more of a wrestling match to get that off than the first one, but at least it is now free. Yuck, and it's gone everywhere. Where's my blue paper gone? Yeah, I think possibly the roll of blue paper was the most useful thing I remember to bring over here. that's really held tight in that little grommet catch thing. Now we can undo this one again. In goes the new one. Oops. Not the most gainly thing to be winding in. There we go. Give that a little wipe as well, make sure it's not got any contaminants in there. Finally, tighten it up. Spanner on spanner. Spanner drop spanner. Spanner drop other spanner. Going well. Cool. Give it a bit of a clean up now. So from the new wall of tools in a 14 and a 17 for the rear brakes. Okay, so while this has been soaking in penetrating oil to make loosening that one off, I've left it on the axle stand so it can sit there nice and solid. Nice new axle stands that can live up here permanently now. Meanwhile, I'll pop this wheel off, put this one on a stand as well, and soak this one so this can be pre-soaking, so hopefully that'll come off nice and easily too. Meanwhile, I have been rethinking my plan of how I'm going to do this. So when I'm done here today, I am going to leave this car on its axle stands with the backup in the air. It's fine, it's a nice solid 3-ton axle stands that will do the trick for a while. But I've noticed what a state the rear part of the chassis is in. So when I come back next time, I'll bring some .45, and bleed the brakes. Obviously the rear brakes will need bleeding first. And then I'm going to wire brush, rust kill and chassis black all of this lot because it looks a bit manky. Oop, well, there's not a lot you can see here, but I've just managed to get this 14mm on here and crack this one loose already. I realise now that the axle stand is not in the best position for this particular job. Okay, that's loose. I might just tighten it back up again so it doesn't dribble too much while I'm working on the other one. The other end looks a little trickier. This is basically exactly the same as it was at the front. Oh, it's not 12, it's an 11. How did I forget? So 11mm on the hard cable side. No, it's not 11, it's 12 after all. Just doesn't want to grasp it. Should turn against each other. Yeah, this car is coming apart far too easily. I was genuinely expecting a massive struggle, which it hasn't delivered. This car is funny. Sometimes I think it's going to cause me my worst nightmare. Other times, whoops, it's literally no trouble at all. I'm going to pull off that retaining bracket. It's exactly the same retaining bracket as it was at the front. I think I'm going to give Clover Breakers a call tonight because I think the one at the front is knackered and could do with a replacement. I might need 1 or 2 more as well. Do need to go and get a bigger one of these toolboxes. That should do the trick. Just a small one for everything I'm hoping to collect. So what I need to be doing is getting the grips on this little bracket thing here, this little side peg, grip it and pull it straight out there because that's just locking that in to the bracket. This feels kind of wrong, my first use of these brand new mold grips, vice grips if you're in America, and I'm doing something proper with them. I'm not damaging something. There we go, free. Okay, this one has actually got a couple of little welds on it. Oh no, it's broken free, there we go. That is now free as a bird. So here you can see the bottom end and the top end. This goes through that hole there in this bracket. That other end of the hard line screws into that, and this goes into that little locking groove just there so that it doesn't fall out. Easy peasy. So now we have shiny and new Automotive Excellent So that just screws straight in there. So I don't cross thread it, that would be a disaster. 12, what size was that? 14mm, I believe. That's 12 with 14 gone. Okay, now I just need to gently tap in, or somehow reinsert the locking tab. Everything's a hammer. Back in here for the moment, just so they don't get lost. Then we'll move on to the other side and come back with some .5 brake fluid, because I forgot to bring any. That's a silly thing to do. I don't know why I forgot to bring brake fluid. Oh yeah, last thing each side, just give everything a little bit of a clean up with some brake and clutch cleaner, because the brake fluid itself is pretty nasty stuff, really. Hopefully, this one, being the fourth one, will be super easy, barely an inconvenience. Yep, it's freed off already. 11 and 17mm, which are actually a little bit grotty. Haha, got you. Okay, maybe it's a little over the top for this situation. This one is going to need more penetrating fluid. I knew this was going far, far too easily. This one is not budging an iota, not even a smidget, half a smidge or even a fraction of a smidge. Oh, that's a bit crusty, that dust shield. So what I'm going to have to do, well, what I have done in fact, is just splurge a load more release agent on this thing, leave it overnight, and I'll come back in the morning, because this is not even pretending to look like it wants to make an effort at budging. It's just staying exactly where it is. I'll bring the brake flare tool with me tomorrow as well, because there's a good chance this will actually just shear off the end of the hard line and I have to make a new thing. So I'm back here at the barn again, and well, it is blooming freezing, but I did unpack something yesterday which is a huge addition to making this place far more livable. Yes, it is a space heater. Wow, money well spent, because it is painfully cold, but that's going to give us, already giving a lovely waft of warm air, which is taking the chill off, although it has exposed one shortcoming of the stuff I've brought over here so far, and that is its position over here, because there's no more plugs at that end of the room where the car is, so it's having to waft its way over there, which is doing quite a good job of, but it's also exposed the fact that the heat induction tool, which I brought along with me, is all the way over here, and nothing to plug it in over there. I don't really want to take the car back off the jacks again. God, I'll tell you what, that heater's only been on about 5 minutes, and already it's made a massive difference to taking the chill off the room. It's actually sort of quite nice to be here now. Right, okay, so last night, as you know, I left this soaking in penetrating oil. I gave it another blast as soon as I got here this morning, and, well, let's give it another bash. So I've been in with the 11mm on the small side, the 17mm on the big side, and they're both really tight fits. But no matter how much pressure I put on there, it's not coming undone. And eventually the 11mm starts to slip, and I'm more worried it's actually going to twist off and shear the brake pipe rather than come undone, so that the hardline side, or as is actually starting to happen, just damage the nut. I need the heat extraction tool. Bother. Right, so we have reached an impasse. 3 out of the 4 flexes are changed, and I couldn't believe how easily that went. That was the job I was kind of dreading on this car, most of all, weirdly enough. Unfortunately, number 4 was what I was expecting from this job. One end came undone, super easy. The second end, didn't want to know. And I've put the spanner on it, I've put the grips on it, I've soaked it overnight in penetrating oil, nothing's happening. I couldn't use the induction heat tool because I haven't got an extension lead down here. So the next bit of shopping I've got to do for the barn is a couple of extension leads because I want to be screwing a couple of LED lights to the wall over that end of the room as well. You may have seen them on the last junk in the trunk over on Furious Tea Break. The other thing I'm going to be purchasing at the same time is a broom because the floor in here is absolutely horrible. It's just a dust fest, and every time I put anything on the ground it comes up, well, looking like this, and that sticks to all my clothes, my shoes, my hands. So yeah, I'm going to give the floor a sweep, which is not exciting but absolutely essential. If the heat induction tool doesn't work, because I have a feeling that, I don't know, it's going to put damage onto that brake hardline when it finally comes undone, if it finally comes undone at all. So I'm going to have to be using this tool, which I actually got ready for the Mercedes, because the Mercedes needs complete new brakes doing. I've never made brake lines before, but I'm ready to do it. And how hard, as they say, can it be? So I'll have to pop down, grab the right end fitting for the pipe, and knock up a new end fitting, flare it out, so that I will have an entirely new brake end fitting on there, and that will work perfectly. That is what may happen next time, but as it stands, it's the wrong time of day to go and do any shopping, and I can't come back tomorrow, so this will all have to be on hold till later in the week. But then at least we can carry on and do a few other things. While the back end of the car is in the air, we can get that rear suspension, rear chassis on that lot rust-proofed and chassis blacked and made look an awful lot nicer. So there we go. Right, I'm going to sign off for today and do a bit of tidying up around here. So thanks for watching. Please, as always, do hit like and subscribe and tell your friends and all the other good YouTube stuff. If you're interested in any of the tools that I've been using and doing really well with up until the last moment, head down to the link to the Amazon store in the description below. And if you fancy a Furious Driving hat or t-shirt, then check out the links down there as well. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you again soon.